everybody, to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson, and on this week's show, we are talking. What else? Black Panther,
This
Wakanda
movie that you might have
Forever.
heard of.
I know we're gonna talk about Slumberland. That's what we were gonna do instead.
Oh shit, is that this week?
It comes out this week. It comes out this week. I
Jesus.
know, I know, right? I know. In theaters, and it comes out on Netflix. I think in a week or two. I don't know, but it comes out in theaters this
There's
week.
a lot like that too. Like Spirited comes out in theaters this week.
Yeah, it came out
Guillermo del
today,
Toro's Pinocchio, but like none of this shit, nobody's gonna see it like in theaters
yeah.
until it hits streaming.
And I don't screen Pinocchio until tomorrow, so I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm waiting for a link for it because they still haven't screened in Montreal. They screened Bardo in Montreal, but they didn't
we
screen.
saw Bart. We screened Bardo yesterday.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I couldn't get away from work because it's like 3 hours. But it's like
It is
I just find it
different
crazy they'll
than
screen Bardo, but they won't screen Pinocchio, the movie everybody wants to see.
right. I know, right? Even with
Yeah.
the editing down, it still felt like the 3 hours. So
I mean, they sent me the thing. It's at 184 minutes, and it's like I thought it was cut. Like, that's the shortest they got it? Like,
I think the
it's like
184
homework
minutes
now. That movie,
is like
like
pre-cut.
everybody says, yeah.
I think the 184 minutes is like pre-cut.
Okay.
I think, but it still feels long. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about those films. We're here to talk about another art house movie, and that is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This
I
is
mean, that one's long, but at least stuff is happening, so it's
right. No, it doesn't feel long, and to be
now.
honest, the movie, and this is one of the things that we could just start talking about it. I mean, 2 hours and what 40 minutes or something close to that. It needs every minute of it.
I mean, 2 hours and 40 minutes isn't so long for a Marvel movie these days. Like it
Yeah.
feels like there's two classes of Marvel movies. There's like the B level ones that are like 2 hours or a little over 2 hours, and then there's like the A level ones like
Do
Endgame.
they have any
And
that are
that's
sub 2 hours? Like any?
wasn't like Doctor Strange like 119 minutes or something like
No.
was I don't know. It was close. I think no, it was I think it was Thor Ragnarok was the last one that was just under 2 hours. I'm
That
not
makes
positive.
sense. That makes sense.
I look, I agree with you that it needed its time. The
Yeah.
only thing is, and I wrote like at my letterboxd review of Wakanda, is that I zoned out every time they went to Martin Freeman and Julia Louis Dreyfus and they did the Marvel world building. Like, why did they need that in the movie to tie it into the Disney Plus shows? Like, we don't need that. It's like I've been waiting fucking 5 years to watch a movie about Wakanda. Like, I want to see, take me back to Wakanda. I want to see the
But
fucking
this
my
also gives us
all my
reason.
friends.
This also gives us a reason to keep up with Martin Freeman. I mean, and he's one, or I mean, and Everett K. Ross, who's one of my favorite characters in the comics, or at least he was when they used to use him. And I like Martin Freeman in that role. This gives us a reason to have him in the movie. And otherwise, I don't know what he would do.
I
So
don't know. I
it's
thought
really
every time
bothered me.
too much with Julie Louis Dreyfus, and I just thought it was like I was kind of zoning out a little bit because I don't watch the Marvel shows though. I'm not as tied into the mythology as a lot of
Right,
people are, and I
right.
think I'm the only one that's been complaining about that. It's just because I think probably the reason I like the Black Panther movies is because they're kind of a more singular experience, I think, as opposed to a lot of other Marvel stuff. Like they kind of work on their own, or like the only movie you really need to have seen to enjoy Black Panther is to enjoy Wakanda Forever is Black Panther, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
one, you
yeah,
know.
no, absolutely. And I guess it kind of works similar to the way Black Adam does, which when you have these characters who are rooted in a place,
Hmm.
and you kind of get to just explore that place and not have
Yeah,
to worry about everything that goes around outside of it. And that's one of the things I like about the Black Panther stories and being in Wakanda. We don't usually have to worry about the stuff that's going on with the rest of the Marvel universe, which sadly, the original story would have had T'Challa dealing with the after effects of the snap and the blip and all that kind of stuff. And in a sad way, his passing has probably given them a better story to tell.
no,
It's
I
an
mean, yeah.
awful way to put that, but it's in a way it's kind of true. You get a story that's more focused on Wakanda.
Well, it's funny because I would say the most powerful moment in a Marvel movie that I can recall is probably the first 5 minutes of Wakanda Forever when
Yeah,
Shuri's trying to save her brother.
Yeah.
Like to me, that was a hell of a way to start the movie.
How
And
did
then
you feel about the way Marvel handled that? Because that is like that's the biggest thing going into this movie for people who have not seen it yet. And and the big question that everyone has had is how are they going to handle the loss of Chadwick Boseman and whatever happens to T'Challa without giving away what happens?
I think they
How did it
handled
make,
it
how
the
did it make
best
you
they
feel?
could.
How did it make you feel when you were going through it?
I think they did a flawless job with it, to be honest. Like, I don't know who's responsible. I'm assuming Ryan Coogler. It's just like they. The thing is, I was talking about it like the other day. The thing is, if Chadwick Boseman was still around and was still playing Black Panther, he wouldn't have the mythology or the mythos that he has now that he died, right? It's one of those things. It's like if you think about when James Dean died, or when Bruce Lee died right after, right before Enter the Dragon came out, or Heath Ledger right before Dark Knight. You get this extra kind of mythology when the person dies, right? It makes it
Yeah.
different. If you watch Black Panther now with Chadwick Boseman being dead, it's a different movie than it was when we saw it when it first came out. It's much more bittersweet. And I don't think they could have recast T'Challa. I think people would have. There are people out there. A mutual acquaintance of ours is kind of like this critic that wants the role recast, and I could see that because it's an important character to Marvel, and
Right.
it's an important
It's not
character.
the same. It's not the same as just putting somebody else in a suit. It's not
Yeah,
like you can't do it T'Challa the way you would do James Bond
yeah.
or
Because
even
he is Chadwick Boseman. That's the thing.
yeah,
It's like you
can't
think
do
of
it.
Chadwick Boseman as the characters, they've become so entwined. Like it would be
Yeah,
really hard to do that now.
yeah.
So I think
I
they
think
did the
fans will
best they
reject
could.
it too. I think fans will reject it
Oh,
if say they
100% they
try to
would have.
do it.
Oh, they
Now,
would
you
have
have a
been
lot of people who say
fucking
they wouldn't.
furious.
I think fans will totally reject it.
I mean, and who would you get to fill those shoes too? Like, I mean, somebody says
Impossible
Jonathan.
burden. It'd be an impossible burden.
Yeah, like I don't think Jonathan Majors is going to jump on to play T'Challa. And it's like,
Oh, we
who the
got
fuck?
John David Washington in here to play. You'd be like, what? No.
People would be so mad too. If it was him. I feel like they'd be pissed. But yeah, no, I mean, I think they did the best with it that they could, though. Like, and dramatically it works because it was a character, because the baton in a lot of ways is passed to Shuri, and it's a character that we already know who was already set up in the first movie, and you could feel that they were setting her up to eventually take that mantle. It wasn't supposed to happen as fast as it did.
Right.
But for me, that's one of the things that really worked about the movie was her whole transition to taking the mantle. I thought was handled beautifully, and I
Yeah.
liked, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a thing that happens towards the end of the movie, and I was like, when I saw it in the theaters, I was like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting it, and
Let's
yeah,
just say that Wakanda more than any other people in the MCU have faced incredible tragedy
yeah,
for being, and this is like a thread throughout the movie. I don't know if it was an explicit thread that they were aiming for, but you have essentially the most powerful nation in the world with
mhm.
the most advanced technology, but they've also faced probably the most emotional loss
Yeah.
of any people in the entire MCU. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, and I liked, Shuri's anger, and I felt like the transition of the character from being kind of naive, or not naive, but like not wanting to kind of face up with like the loss of her brother, to what she goes through in the movie and then how she is at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty strong arc for a character. I can't remember a Marvel movie that had a similar arc. I think probably the last one might have been Black Panther, to be honest. Like, it's just because it's one of those things, like they really kind of make that character, experience a growth as the film goes on. And I think they
Yeah.
did it. I think they did a really good job with that. For me, that's probably the best. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I liked the movie quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
But it was I thought that was really well done. And I thought she was great in it. And I wasn't sure if I would buy her as Black Panther, but I totally did. And I thought she was,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think if they had just, and we don't talk too much about, everybody knows that she gets the Black Panther suit.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
Marvel has not done a good job of trying to hide that if they
I mean,
want.
you can't make a Black Panther movie without Black Panther. I mean,
Right. And plus all the toys gave it away anyway.
yeah, yeah.
But no, I think if they had just started the movie and had her in the suit, we wouldn't have bought it.
No, yeah, that would have been too much.
Had to go on the journey that she goes into for us to be able to accept it. And I thought everything that she went through trying to kind of throw herself into her technology and her machines and the things that she's always relied on made sense. Like that stuff made sense. And I also liked the sort of contrast between her and Riri Williams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have like this character who is, you know, basically or almost on the same intellectual level as her, but she's more streetwise. She comes from a totally different background. So you get this exploration of the different kinds of backgrounds that Black people have. And I always thought that was kind of cool. And yeah, I thought that the two of them really play off each other really well.
Yeah, people have been complaining. They said that like it feels like too much setup for Ironheart, but I liked her. I thought like she was a good actress. She was, I mean, she's also got a really good director though, Ryan Coogler. So that's a good launch for the character, I think. And I'm curious to see what they do with that show.
She fit into the story. It didn't.
Did.
It's not as if they forced her in there or something like that. She made sense being in the movie the way she was fitted. She was put in there. I had no problem with her at all.
And I liked, you know, I mean, I do like that whole world though, you know, like the whole Wakanda thing. Like I think that Coogler has done a really good job setting up, like, I mean, I don't know anything about the comics, like I really don't, but I think that he's done a good job setting up the cinematic mythology of it, you know. And it is like a world that you kind of just get sucked into, right? That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it's you know, sometimes when you watch these fantasy movies or these superhero movies and they're set in another world, you don't buy like for lack of a better word, like the verisimilitude of it, you know, like for instance, I'm watching the Lord of the Rings show, you know, I'm being forced to watch it because Laura loves it. I can't.
It's
but I don't buy that world. The world.
It took like to the final 2 or 3 episodes for it to finally grow on.
That world doesn't feel real to me though, in the way that Wakanda feels real. I mean, it felt real in the Lord of the Rings movies, but it doesn't feel necessarily real in the Lord of the Rings show. Yeah. But you know, but Wakanda feels like a real place to me, right? You know, and there's something about that because it's got like its mythology, it's got the different people, the different tribes, everybody's got their different strengths. I really like that, you know, and it kind of gives you an idea of the scope, you know, and I like the politics of Wakanda too. I like the tribal elders. I like M'Baku's role. I thought he was great.
M'Baku was fantastic in this one.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that emerges from, you know, Chadwick Boseman's absence is that a lot of people get more time.
Well, he was like a one-note character in the first one, kind of like he was just kind of like a rival that becomes a friend. But in this one, it's like he has a really important part to play.
Place in Wakanda. He is we see how much he cares about Wakanda, even though he's part of this sort of an outsider tribe. And I really thought the surprise for me, and I will almost be surprised if she doesn't get some accolades, is Angela Bassett.
Yeah, I think she has a very strong role in the movie. And they were, you know, but I think they also, it's one of those things where they were fortunate when they were casting the first one that they chose like a really good actress to play that part. You know, they could have just
like they didn't cast Nicki Minaj in the first one as like a joke casting.
Well, yeah, like you know how sometimes they do that,
and then they're stuck with her, and then they're stuck with her for the sequel.
Yeah, you know how sometimes they do that in a movie though, where they like, you know, no, I was trying to think of like Game of Thrones when the guy that was helping Daenerys, you know, was Ed Skrein or something like that. He just wasn't a good enough actor, so they replaced him. You know, with Angela Bassett, you get this Academy Award nominated actress. You know, and it's like her best role she's had since like Strange Days. You know, so it's good.
Come on, man! It's Angela Bassett. She's had a lot of great roles.
I know she has, and she's great.
But I think people are going to go into this not expecting her to have quite as big a role as she does, and she's really driving the story for a good chunk of this movie.
Well, yeah, because you know, by necessity, Shuri's off screen for a while. You know, and I do think that. I do think the fact that it's an ensemble also, like much more than any of the other Marvel movies that I've seen in a while, really helps though. You know, like she does have her own arc, and I really liked the payoff between her and Riri Williams as well. You know, and that's like a motivating factor for her going forward as well. Yeah. You know, like I thought it was really well done. But again, I think that's also Coogler is very good at casting, and he's very good at, you know, getting performances. But you know, it's funny though. There's a spoiler. there are a couple juicy bits that he throws in there though that are interesting, and it feels like they're definitely setting up a new like a third movie like right away.
Oh yeah. Oh
I mean,
yeah.
they were doing that with the
Absolutely.
last Black Panther, but there's like an arc that they're gonna follow up on that's pretty interesting.
Yes, and I think we're going to see Wakanda and that whole royal line become a little bit more Game of Thrones ish, which I
Well,
think.
yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I also really like though. I like Lupita Nyong'o in the movie too. As like I found that her character has kind of become almost like the James Bond of Wakanda. I thought that was kind of
Yeah,
cool. Nakia.
he's the war
Like,
dog.
yeah, well, and I like kind of like how they send her out, to kind of do like these like, on like cool missions and stuff like that. And I think that's a great role for
I like
Lupita as
Mbaku's
well.
joke. I like what Mbaku's joke about her too. Like, like she'll probably get banished for doing
Yeah, exactly. She saved the kingdom. She'll probably get banished.
that.
I also liked, the whole arc with Okoye too. I thought that was good. Danae Guerrera,
It's a little surprising there. Surprising that because I guess I wasn't expecting them to do anything that would seem to be like a major character point with her.
Yeah.
But she does have something really big happening to her, and I really thought that was surprising. I thought everything they did with the Dora Milaje was interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Even
mean,
kind of
yeah.
setting up for that Wakanda spinoff show that they
It feels like there's a lot they can do with that whole universe though, with like Wakanda. Like it feels like there's a whole fuckload of shows they could do with that. Like I mean, I feel like, maybe it's not a good idea though. Maybe that's the problem if you spin off too many things. But I feel like, um
I feel like there's if there's a chance to do a show, Marvel will do it.
yeah, like I could feel like I feel like you could do a Mumbaku show. I feel like you could
I
do a
want the
Nakia show.
M'Baku limited series. I just need
Yeah.
like 4 episodes or something. I don't
I mean,
need
that could
I don't
happen.
need
It'd be
two
cool.
seasons. I just give me 4 or 5 episodes set in the Jabari tribe, of him trying to like maybe to quell his own rebellion, like or something like
They may not be able to get Ryan Coogler, but they might be able to get his brother.
that.
Yeah, like maybe they can get him. you know.
They could probably get like Reginald Hudlin to do something like that, right?
Well, I mean, Reginald Hudson loves Marvel, though. It's funny. I mean, I interviewed
He
him
wrote
not
Black
long ago,
he
and
wrote
he had
Black
like his
Panther for a while. I
yeah,
mean,
but he had his huge Captain America shield on his desk too, right? Like he's a fun guy if you interview him. And he's like,
he knows
I'm
that
like, wow,
universe.
you like Marvel, eh? He's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
He knows the Black Panther universe very well.
He actually would be a good choice to do like a spin-off show. He would actually be a pretty inspired choice, to be honest.
Yeah, as long as he finds a way to cross it over with the Great White Hype, then we're all good. And if he can't, then he shouldn't do
Yeah.
it.
No, you could have you could have what was Damon Wayans' character? What was his name again? The boxer, all fat and stuff like that. If he lets himself go. Watching Dolomite. The best scene in that movie is when he's running and he's just chasing the ice cream truck.
Oh man, I love that movie to death. Anyway, all right. So, what do you think about the handling of Namor in this film?
I liked it. I mean, people have been bitching about it. I thought it was.
Have they really?
I mean, oh God.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
well, we posted the video review of it yesterday, and Jimmy loved it, and the comments we got were terrible, but they were none of them were from subscribers. They were just from like random trolls that were commenting on Wakanda Forever
Yeah.
reviews. So like we didn't lose any subscribers or anything like that. But that happens. It's the same thing happened with Rings of Power.
How dare they put a Mexican actor in there for that?
Yeah, I know, seriously.
Yeah.
But and it's just I don't know. I mean, you have to make these characters relevant, I think, to a new generation and to a new world. Like you can't. I mean, do they need to do Atlantis and Under the Sea again? I mean, we have Aquaman, so they kind of need to put. I mean, I know that they're different. I don't know that much about the comics, to be honest, but you do have to make these characters.
Aztec culture, it makes sense.
Yeah, you have to make the character relevant to a new generation, and I think that's what they're doing with Namor, and I think they made him a compelling character.
Yeah, and they're targeting an audience that maybe the first movie didn't reach, and it's
Of course, yeah.
it's to me it's one of the smartest things they ever done because I never would have thought to tie Namor and Atlantis to the Aztec culture. And I never would have thought to do it at all. I would have just done a straight version of it. But I think this is really outside the box thinking by them to do it this way. And it's really smart. And I thought the handling of Namor was really good. It is a character that they've been trying to use for over a decade now,
Yeah.
and they finally get a chance to do it, and they made him exactly the way he should be, which is powerful, confident, and a protector. Which is he's
Yeah.
not that much different than Black Panther in a lot of ways. He's
No, you have sympathy with him, even though
figure people.
he's theoretically, the antagonist in the film. You do have sympathy for him, and I liked
Yeah.
his chemistry with Shuri, and I loved the battle between them at the end. I thought was great.
Great
Um,
fight at the end. Really great fight between Okoye and Atuma as well. They get to brawl a couple of times in the movie, and I
yeah,
thought it
that's
was
a good
fun.
one. That is a good one. Yeah, I mean, I thought the action was pretty good in this one too. Like, I always have problems with kind of like the Marvel VFX, and there's like a couple of shots in it like that too. Like it like, but but I think that's kind of par for the course with Marvel these days. What I'm curious about though, for me, is because what I really liked in the movie was at the end there's a really cool touch where Coogler has Black Panther will return, and I like that little James Bond touch at the end.
Yeah,
But it also feels like it's a mantle that's going to be passed as the series goes on. But I think that Black Panther theoretically is a series that they're intending to go on for a very very long time, and could become the next like massive pop culture character. And I think it's already kind of started. But I'm curious, where do you see Coogler going in terms of his career? Because I see him doing maybe one more Black Panther and then passing it along to a different voice and
yeah,
staying on board creatively in some ways. But I see him doing like maybe one more, doing the trilogy. Where
yeah,
do you see his career going? Like, what kind of movies do you think he's going to do? Because to me, I think he's a great director, but
yeah.
I'm very curious as to what he's going to do next. Like, do you think he's going to keep getting big, going bigger and bigger and bigger, or do you think he's going to take a step back?
Yeah, I think he'll probably take a step back. I mean, you
Yeah,
saw what he did when he got a chance to take a step back. He did Creed, and the Creed movies aren't huge movies. They do extremely well, but in terms of like the size of them, they're fairly small movies. I think we'll see him take a breath. I think we'll see him do one more Black Panther. Yeah, it could be a long time before we get that Black Panther movie,
yeah.
though. Like I think it'll be, some years before we get the third Black Panther. I
I
think
wouldn't be surprised if he did something in between them, something like
oh, he'll
totally
absolutely do something in
different.
between.
Yeah,
I think you'll see him do something maybe the size of a Fruitvale station, something smaller that has personal meaning to him. Something like that movie did. I think you'll see him do stuff like that. I'd like to see him do something along the lines of like say Devotion, like something along that kind of thread, something
yeah.
that's black history, the story has never been told. I like to see him do something like that. He seems like the kind of director that would want to do that too.
He could probably do like the definitive Tuskegee Airmen movie or something like that, or something interesting. It would be a hell of a lot better than Red
And
Tails.
I want somewhere down the line, I want him to do like I want him to do a Star Wars movie.
Oh, he'd do a great Star Wars
But I
movie.
want yeah, but I want him to be the first black director to do a Star Wars movie.
Well, it seemed like J.M. Dillard was going to come close. J.D.
Yeah,
Dillard
he
was
just
going to
said that
come
he's
close,
not doing it anymore.
which is too bad though, because if you watch Devotion, like that's a very kind of commercial
Yeah.
movie done in a very good way.
And he teased that his Star Wars movie would have been influenced by the TIE Fighter video games. Uh
That's interesting because he did
so,
a really good job with like the action in
yeah,
Devotion, considering the
really
budget
does.
wasn't very high for that movie. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a loss in some ways. Like I can see him doing like a Rogue Squadron type movie that would have
Yeah.
been kind of cool.
I agree. I can see him take
Yeah.
over that Rogue Squadron movie that Patty Jenkins probably ain't going to do.
He might though. I mean, he might like. I feel like Devotion might open some doors for him, even if it's not a huge hit. I think
Yeah,
people will see it, and I think it will. I think the right people are going to see that movie, and it's
yeah.
going to open some
I feel like
doors.
if that movie were coming out in 2023, it would do better. But it is what it is, and
Yeah.
I keep telling people to go see it, and I'm hoping people do.
Well, it's
Um,
coming out soon, eh?
yes, like I think in the next 2 weeks, it comes out. So
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I think
I mean,
November 23rd actually it might be when it comes out. So
yeah, I hope it does well too. I mean, in some ways the timing is good because Glenn Powell's career has kind of taken off a bit, but it does. I don't know. If it was coming out after Creed 3, I think that would make a big difference though, because I think that's going to put Majors on another level, especially playing Kang.
yeah,
I think you're probably right. 2023 would have been better.
yeah, no, I totally agree. But I
Yeah.
think Coogler's future is incredible, incredibly bright.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
I can't
It's
wait to see
funny though.
his
I think back to Sundance. I saw him at like the library theater just after Fruitvale Station was there, and he wasn't like Ryan Coogler yet, and it was he was going to see Kill Your Darlings, and he was just buying popcorn, and
Talking about
somebody
a movie I forgot about.
yeah,
Jeez.
and he was just buying popcorn, and somebody came over to him like, and they're like, "Hey, Ryan, loved your movie," and he's like, "Oh, hey, thanks," and he was just like very low key and like
Yeah.
easygoing, like you could talk to him,
Yeah.
and it was just like I feel like now he'd be like he'd have like he's like a huge director, like it's massive. It's like you wouldn't see
Yeah.
Jordan Peele walking around either,
I kind of
just like
feel like he
people be
might still
throwing
be.
scripts at him.
I feel like he might still be very approachable though. Like
Yeah. Oh, cool.
talk to about stuff. Man,
Other people might just be throwing scripts at him all the time.
I think Kill Your Darlings is one of those movies that I liked a lot because I was in the festival bubble. And
Oh yeah, of
I've tried
course.
to watch it since, and I'm like, this movie's not that great actually.
There's a lot of movies like that. A lot of. It's interesting though. I mean, how do you think this is going to do financially?
The question is, does it surpass the first one?
I mean,
Right?
I think it's almost
First
impossible
one,
at
first
this
one made
point.
what 1.3 billion, I think.
It's funny because the first one, it wasn't like a hit. It was like a cultural phenomenon. And I don't know. And it was the
Hard to
fact that
recapture that.
yeah, and it was the fact that people went back to see it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Are they going to do that with Wakanda Forever? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the
The
thing.
reason why I think people won't do it, and I think the opening weekend will be massive. This
Yeah.
weekend will be massive because I don't know anybody who ain't going to go see it like this
Mhm.
weekend. But I think the reason why it might not be as big of a hit is because it is also quite emotionally draining.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a I've said it before that it's a cathartic experience for a lot of people to be able to kind of deal with your grief over Chadwick Boseman, which the movie does quite well because the characters are going through that grief all throughout the movie.
Well, it's the saddest. It's also like the saddest Marvel
Very
movie
sad. It's a
ever.
very sad movie in a lot of ways too. And I think people will be exhausted by the time it's over.
Yeah.
And while they may love the movie, going back to go through that experience again for nearly 3 hours could be tough. Could be
I
tough.
will say this though. Yesterday, when I was at the screening, I guess it wasn't the first one that was in Montreal because there were a couple journalists that came back to see it again.
I was
So
going to do that tonight. It's screening here tonight, and I was
yeah.
going to go, but I was like,
So maybe there's some repeat business there. I think it's going to do. I think it's unfair though if people compare it to the first one because it was a different era too. Was pre-COVID and box office was different. And I feel like now everybody's always like, oh, the movie's disappointing or whatever. I think it's going to do exactly what Marvel wants it to do, and I'm sure it's going to be a success either way.
I think it'll be one of many sequels that gets a Best Picture nomination at the
Do you
Oscars.
think it's going to get a Best Picture nomination? You see, I don't know about that. I'm not sure it's going to get. I think Bassett could get nominated for
The first one
supporting actor.
did, and I think this one will too.
Interesting. I could see it happening. It's funny. I feel like Bassett could get nominated.
I
I feel
think
like
so too.
Ludwig Göransson could get nominated for score as well because it's a very good score.
Yep,
Um,
yep, I
it'll
agree.
be interesting to see though if like it gets nominated for Best Picture or if like Coogler got nominated.
That would be interesting if he gets a Best Director nomination. That could
Yeah.
happen also. But I
Mhm.
definitely think it'll be in there along with Avatar 2. I think Top Gun Maverick. These are sequels that I think are going to be in that Best Picture race this year. It's going to be a very interesting year.
It is, it is for me though. Like it is cool to see. Like I think for me, Black Panther is always going to be kind of a cut above the other Marvel movies because it does feel like its own kind of distinct thing, and I do like that.
And
Like
I
I
think
find
Ryan
that that's
Coogler's a better director than almost anybody else they've got. And I
oh
think
easily.
that's not a knock on the other directors. I
No,
just
of course not. Look, I mean,
I think he's a
I
better director than the Russos. He's a better director than a lot of people that they've got. So I mean,
well, he has a. I mean, I think the thing is he has a vision. That's very particular. And I don't
it
know
doesn't
that.
feel like the Marvel vision, does it? Like it feels
No, and that's why I like them though.
it feels
To be
like something
honest,
else. Yeah, it feels
it's
like
funny. It's funny if you compare him to like the Black Adam director. What's his name again?
Johnny
Jaume Cole Serra. Like it's just same budget, but playing on a very different field. Like they're not.
yes.
It's like the game is totally different. Like it's just like they're not even in the same fucking ballpark. It's just crazy.
No, they are not in the same stratosphere. Those two.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be curious to see. I like what. So it's funny. I was reading somewhere that Jordan Peele was offered Black Adam at one point, and he turned it down because he's like, I'm not as passionate about these movies as you need a director to be. And I think that's why Coogler is great with Black Panther. I think he's very passionate, especially now,
which is
after Boseman died. But
which is why I'm glad he's not going to do something like Secret Wars or something like that. He's kind of staying in this sandbox
yeah,
that he feels passionately about. I don't want to see him make a movie that he's not passionate about. I've seen
well,
directors
that
that
brings me to the point, though. Do we want to start seeing Black Panther characters show up in like Secret Wars, though? Because does that ruin the cachet of the character a little bit? That's why I don't want to ever see a James Bond spinoff, because I like that to be its own singular thing. So do you want to see, like, as cool as a M'Baku show might be, does it kind of cheapen it, though? Does it kind of make it more, because I mean, you can't say that Star Wars and Marvel hasn't been overexposed these days. They have been.
yeah, of course.
So it's maybe keeping Black Panther its own thing makes it last longer. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do Black Panther spinoffs if you like. Say you did a M'Baku series, you wouldn't have to actually have Black Panther show up. Like, I think that would be okay if he didn't, because that world has been colored in so well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel like I needed to see Black Panther. I wouldn't need it. I don't feel like I think if you did like the Dora Milaje, you might kind of want to have Black Panther show up for something.
Yeah.
Because that's their main job is to protect Black Panther or the king. But it is what it is. I don't know. All I know is Black Panther Wakanda Forever for me is, I think it's a tremendous film. I do think, like, in terms of like action, it's maybe not as much as the first one had. But the action I think is better in this one.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me though, it's always like for action movies, and you and I are big action fans. It's not the amount of action that I ever care about. It's the quality of action. And I often find that if a movie has less action, that's sometimes a lot better. Like one or two really good. It's funny, like one of the best action movies ever is Point Break. And it's like 3 or 4 really distinctive action sequences. Yeah. And that's really all you need, because you also have to have a compelling storyline in between those. And I think that's what Wakanda Forever does really well, is that, when the action's not happening, I'm still very invested and I'm not waiting for the next action scene to happen. I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I agree. That's the best thing about this movie. The story hooks you in immediately, because you're the first thing you're like, and I like that they take care of answering that question right away.
Oh, and I liked the way they did that too. And it's like, and the fact that, it's people get sick and they die. Like, that's reality, and it affects everybody, even a fucking comic book character, with superpowers. But that's a great way to start the movie though. Like, it really kind of like knocks your socks off a little bit, because it's a gut punch, right? Even though you're kind of expecting it, and the fact that he didn't have that little Marvel logo come up right away with like the uplifting music. Instead, they started on a very somber note. I think it's extremely effective.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And it also does a really good job setting up Shuri's whole arc too.
Yes.
The fact that she feels all of her technology couldn't do shit in the end.
I still have my doubts about Disney's long-term commitment to her.
That's a spoilery topic I wanted to talk
I know. And I'm not going to go any further than that.
Because I do have thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. Anyway, those are our thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It opens in theaters on November 11th, so just 2 days after this recording. So yeah, there you go. And I'm sure most people will be seeing it at least this weekend, and maybe one more time. I know I'm going to at least see it one more time, at the very least. So those are our thoughts. We both love it. That's it. Thank you, Chris Bumbray, JoeBlow.com, my sort of boss there. You're my boss there, I guess. I should say sort of.
Collaborators, yeah.
I may run Punch Drunk Critics, but you practically run Joe Blow. So you're like my boss there. So that's cool though. We're the only boss I really like. So anyway, thanks again, Chris, for joining me to talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. You got anything coming up you wanna talk about real quick?
Yeah. I don't know. I got my shows on Joe Blow Originals. Like I've got it's funny, I put out a Stallone video that I really liked last week that not as many people watched as I hoped they would. I did a deep dive into Stallone's comedies, which I thought would do better than it did.
I saw that video, but I haven't actually watched it yet.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that didn't do super well, but but then again, Then there are videos that we put out that explode that I don't think are going to do well. We put out what the fuck happened at Beverly Hills Cop 3 today, and that like immediately everybody wants to talk about that. Like a lot happened.
I'm surprised considering all the buzz around Stallone right now too. I mean,
I saw it. I saw Tulsa King. In fact, I'm speaking to Stallone tomorrow, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, yeah. I'm sure you'd ask him about Rocky. He'll love to talk about that.
That said, though, did you read that interview though where he talked about Creed 3? Like he said it was too much in the. Kind of I'm on Jordan's side with that though, because you can't always do the same thing, you know, like the thing that I feel for Stallone though, and this is true, I think it's bullshit if he's not getting points off the Creed series, because he did create those characters and they're all built on what he created.
Yep.
And I think he's rightly pissed off if, you know, Erwin Winkler and his sons and his kids are getting money, but Stallone gets jack shit. I think he's right to be upset about that, and I get why he is.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Chris. So this has been Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hobson of PunchdrunkCritics.com. You can find me every day there. You can find me on a whole bunch of places here in the DC area as well. Thanks again, everybody. I will see you again next week. Bye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.